Welcome back to the shadows of Nakora Nights. Tonight we enter the Appalachian Mountains, but not for ghosts, not for monsters. Tonight it's something far worse. Because out here, the most terrifying thing isn't the forest, it's the people watching from inside it. These are true Appalachian stalker encounters. Stories of hikers, campers, and travelers who realized someone was following them, step for step, breath for breath, sometimes for days before revealing themselves. You will hear about footsteps matching every move you make, campsites circled in the dirt overnight, whispers from the tree line calling your name, and shapes that vanish the moment you look, but are always closer the next time. Before we descend into this paranoia, answer me. Where are you watching from right now? And what time is it where you are? Because fear hits different when you're alone and the room behind you is dark. If you're brave enough to stay through all 10, hit like, subscribe, and comment. Don't follow me. Now, lock your doors, close your curtains. And whatever you do, don't turn around if you hear footsteps behind you. This is 10 Untold Most Disturbing True Appalachian Stalker Horror Stories. Let's begin. I never wanted neighbors. I liked my own breath in a quiet room, like the world was holding still just for me. I learned the hard way that silence can watch you back. My name is Rowan Hale. I am 32 years old, and before all of this, I thought I was built for peace. I grew up in flat Ohio fields where corn stretched like old teeth, and the biggest danger was boredom. When I turned 28, I convinced myself I needed mountains and space to breathe deeper than ever before. Appalachia sounded romantic back then, all old ridges and village whispers and slow creeks curling through forest like silver snakes. I bought a little wooden house tucked near Cumberland Gap, Tennessee, just 2 bedrooms and a porch creaking like an old man clearing his throat. My job as a freelance sound editor meant I worked alone, headphones on, world tuned out. I thought I was living a dream, a quiet cabin, fog sliding down the mountain each morning like soft wool, wind humming through old pines like violins. I was wrong. Peace is only pretty when something darker isn't staring through it. The house sat at the end of a dirt road, past a sagging church, past 3 houses that looked like they were trying not to breathe too loud, past a broken sign that once said, "Welcome to Whistler Hollow," but now only read, "Come to Hollow." I liked that. I thought solitude was safety stitched into dirt and bark. It started in early October, when leaves turned the color of dying embers and the air tasted like cold pennies. I had set up my office upstairs, window open, breeze brushing my face, screen glowing. I could see the gravel drive curve away from the porch, then vanish into trees so thick they looked like a green-black ocean frozen mid-wave. I often lifted my eyes, just to rest them, just to feel like the outside world still existed. That afternoon, something moved at the edge of my vision. At first, I figured it was a deer or a neighbor's stray dog, since everyone here let animals wander like they had errands of their own. But when I focused, my fingers curled tight on my mouse. A man stood where the gravel met the tree line. Not passing through, not hiking, not breathing loud or waving like mountain folk normally did, just standing, quiet as fence posts, still like a photograph someone forgot to move. He wore a dark flannel shirt and old jeans, too loose, too long, as if he had borrowed them from a scarecrow. His hood was up, even though the day was warm enough to taste sunlight on your skin. I could not see his face. I only felt his stare. It had weight, like wet wool dropped across my shoulders. "Can he see me?" I whispered. My chair squeaked, and the sound felt rude in the quiet. The window blinds were halfway down, slanted like eyelashes, but I knew shadows can betray you if someone looks long enough. The man didn't move for maybe 10 seconds, yet it felt like 20 heartbeats jammed into one breath. Then he turned, slow as a puppet pulled by tired strings, and walked back into the woods. I tried to laugh, but it sounded like a cough pretending to be brave. "Probably a hiker," I muttered. "People wander here. Maybe he heard something, maybe he saw a deer." A normal brain lies when fear knocks, and mine was lying like a child hiding crumbs behind their back. Something about that stillness didn't feel right, like nature was holding its breath around him. That night, I called my older cousin Lena, who lived in Asheville. She was loud and quick and full of opinions, the opposite of me. "I'm probably overthinking," I said. "I saw a guy just standing by the driveway today, kind of weird but not doing anything." "Rowan," she said, "that is creepy. People don't just stand there." "Did he talk? Did you get a face?" "No, just flannel and jeans. Could have been anyone." "Anyone doesn't stare for fun. Lock your doors. You're alone out there." She always imagined danger even when none existed, but this time her worry slithered under my ribs and stayed. I pulled the curtains tight that night. I let the dark outside stay outside. The next day, my computer buzzed with back-to-back calls, voice after voice filling my ear while my eyes felt tired from screens and words. Around 2:34 p.m., while a client rambled about file formats, my gaze drifted to the window again. My throat turned dry. He was there. The same man, same clothing, same silent posture, same spot at the end of the gravel. Except this time I knew he was looking directly at my window like a prayer pointed at a single god. I must have lost color in my face because the voice in my headset paused. "You all right, Rowan? You look like someone walked over your grave." "Yeah, just distracted. Lightning in my brain. Sorry." I tried to pretend I cared about audio levels and decibels, but every few seconds I peeked, expecting movement. For 10 minutes he stood. Then in the gap between one breath and the next, he was gone. No footsteps, no shifting brush, no sound, just absence. By evening, my hands were restless, fingers tapping, nerves stretching thin like spider silk. I walked outside, stupid but curious, just to look from his vantage point. From that spot, my window stared back at me like an open eye. If someone stood there long enough, they could memorize my routine, my chair, the shape of me when I leaned forward, the moment I rubbed my temple or cracked my knuckles. I suddenly hated windows. They feel like friendly mouths but can swallow you when you aren't looking. 2 nights later, around 9:40 p.m., I was sinking into sleep on the couch, TV murmuring low, when I heard footsteps on gravel. Soft, steady, crunch pause, crunch toward the house. I sat frozen, hands gripping the blanket like it was a shield made of cotton. Whoever it was walked near the porch, paused, then faded back toward the road. I moved to the peephole, heart jittering, but the night swallowed everything. Stars blinked like they were confused for me. I opened the door. Wrong choice. Fear makes you forget sense. A small note was taped to the wood. My name written neat. "Rowan, come to the door." My skull felt full of bees. He knew my name. This wasn't random. The air tasted metallic, sharp like rain waiting to fall. I called the sheriff. 2 deputies arrived, boots crunching, flashlights shaking like nervous fireflies. I explained the driveway sightings, the stare, the note. They listened, nodded, wrote, but mountain cops have seen weirder things than men staring. One patted my shoulder. "If he comes back, call right away." Could be someone passing through. Comfort comes cheap when it's spoken by someone who drives away. I barely slept. Every floor creak sounding like footsteps upstairs, every breeze scraping the siding like fingers. At 2:19 a.m., a knock came. Gentle, slow, patient. I sat up, heart punching ribs. Another knock, then another, spaced like someone counting. I whispered to 911 again. The knocking did not speed up, did not beg, did not rage. It waited like it had all the time in the world. When patrol lights finally washed over the trees, the knocking stopped. No one on the porch, no tracks in the dirt. Just night pretending to be innocent. They promised extra patrols. Promises crumble faster than old bark. For weeks, I lived in a body that didn't trust itself. I checked windows like I had OCD written into my bones. I locked doors twice even though the house was tiny and locks felt like decoration. The woods sighed each night, and every sigh felt like a warning. Then nothing. Days stretched. Leaves died and winter arrived like a tired king dragging fod behind him. Snow glittered. The world felt clean again. Peace returned like a shy animal sniffing the air. By Thanksgiving, I almost convinced myself it was done. Almost. February arrived cold and sharp. Late one night, around 12:18 a.m., I stretched and glanced outside. He stood there again, same spot, same stillness, but this time he held something small in his hand, rectangular, dark. The woods around him bowed, like they didn't want to be caught breathing near him. I crawled to the floor, breath shallow. I did not call police. Some fear is so big it steals your voice and hands and leaves only shaking bones. When I peeked again, he was gone. Morning came pale and sick. At the base of the drive, something stuck in the frozen dirt. A photograph. Me at my desk, taken from outside the window. My spine felt hollow. I wasn't imagining anything. He had been close. He had watched me like studying prey. The sheriff sent a detective this time, a stern man with eyes like storm clouds. Any enemies? Folks mad at you? No, I barely talk to anyone. I keep to myself. I work. That's it. He looked at the photo too long. Whoever he is, he wants you to know he's close. Install cameras. Stay alert. I bought cameras the same day. Money meant nothing next to fear, but dread lingered like smoke in corners. I jumped at creeks, flinched at windslam, breathed like I was trying not to be heard. A week later, at 3:01 a.m., my phone buzzed. Motion detected. My blood went light, my body ice. I opened the camera feed. The man stood at the bottom of the driveway, head tilted at the lens like he was listening to it breathe. He lifted a paper slowly. The words were simple. Let me in. I dialed again. Waiting felt like drowning in syrup. When patrol lights glowed, he vanished. Not a retreat, not a run, just gone. The detective told me it might be safer to leave for a while. I listened. I packed a bag like my hands belonged to someone else and stayed with Lena for a month. Her apartment was loud, safe-ish, crowded, alive. Yet every night I saw tree shadows and thought of him. When I returned, the house didn't feel like mine anymore. Windows felt like open mouths again. Space felt like wilderness inside walls. No more sightings. Months passed. Then spring came. Birds returned, singing like nothing bad ever happens. I tried to live again. But horror has roots. Roots don't forget the soil they tasted. One warm afternoon, I checked my mailbox. Inside was a tiny lock of hair, dark and tied with fishing thread. My stomach dropped like a stone thrown off a cliff. That wasn't mine. Another day, hiking a trail behind the house trying to reclaim my lungs, I found a small pile of stones stacked knee-high. Then another the next day in a different spot. Each one facing the direction of my cabin, like markers, like someone counting days or distance or breath. One night, scrolling through my photos half asleep, a new picture slid past my thumb. Me. Sleeping. Timestamp said 2:18 a.m. My breath stuttered. My room looked like mine. My blanket like mine. The darkness in the corner of the frame looked like a shape. He had been inside. I checked every lock, every corner. I sat in the living room clutching a fireplace poker. Dawn felt like a lie stretched thin across fear. People think horror is blood or screams or monsters with teeth like broken glass. Real horror is quiet. It wears flannel and stands still. It learns your name. It breathes with you. It waits. I still live here. I am not brave. I am stuck like sap caught in bark. Sometimes bravery is just not running because you have nowhere left to go. Every night before bed, I look out the office window where he once stood. Nothing waits there. But nothing can be a mask. I know he will return. I don't know when. I don't know why. I only know this mountain holds secrets like it was born to hide them, and somewhere in those trees, someone remembers me breathing. If you ever find yourself alone in the Appalachians, do not trust quiet roads or kind breezes or the way mist curls like a lullaby. The forest knows who walks it. The dark knows your windows. And if you see someone just standing, still as bone, watching without blinking, do not wave, do not speak, do not pretend they are lost. They aren't lost. They are waiting, and one day they will knock again. I swear something was watching me. In the hills where fog moves like slow breathing, you can feel eyes before you ever see a face. I grew up tucked deep in the Appalachian spine, in a forgotten pocket of West Virginia, where the air tastes like moss and old secrets, and the ridgelines stand like tired giants. My name is Aaron Cole, and before everything unraveled, I used to think nothing truly bad could happen in a place so quiet, so tucked away from the world. I was wrong in a way that still crawls under my ribs. Back then I was 14, lanky, nervous, always smelling like pine sap and creek water. I wasn't the cool kid, but I wasn't invisible either, caught somewhere in the soft middle where small-town boys sit and dream about bigger lives. My mama worked at the nursing home down in Havers Pike, and my stepdad ran a small sawmill on our land up in the hillside. Our home was a weather-bitten cabin built by my granddad and his brothers back in a time when people didn't buy things, they built them. The place sat lonely, quiet, hugged by trees that felt older than God. Our drive wasn't a real road, just dirt and stones and stubborn roots, climbing through thick timber to reach the county gravel. No school bus ever came up here, so every morning I'd lace my old hiking boots and walk a mile through the woods to where a bending old mailbox marked the start of actual civilization. That walk back then felt like peace, mist curling off the rocks, birds calling like they had gossip to tell, deer stepping out from brush with shy glances. I knew every log, every broken stump, every whisper of creek water. Nothing about it felt eerie. At least, not until it did. It started in late September, when the mornings bite a little sharper and the leaves change their clothes before winter. That day, I had my backpack slung lazy on one shoulder, a piece of bread with peanut butter in my hand, and nothing on my mind except beating Kyle at after-school basketball. Then I saw it. A truck. Beat-up burgundy Ford sitting sideways across the narrow trail like it had grown from the earth overnight. Rust bit the doors, and pine needles stuck to the windshield like tiny claws, and inside sat a woman. She looked mid-40s, hair long and wild like she'd brushed it with a storm. Her face was pale, cheekbones sharp, eyes sunk deep and ringed like she hadn't slept in a month. Her fingers squeezed the steering wheel, knuckles bone white. She didn't blink when I came up the path. Didn't move. She just stared. I pretended not to see her, looking at the ground, heart quick thumping like a rabbit under hawk shadow. I passed the truck and felt her gaze burn holes in my back. When I reached the bend, I dared to glance over my shoulder. She hadn't moved an inch. Still staring, still empty. That evening, at supper, I told my parents. Mama paused mid-stir of her stew, spoon hovering. My stepdad, Mark, stiffened, jaw tightening like he bit into stone. "You sure you didn't know her?" he asked. "Didn't know her. Didn't want to." Mama forced a smile too thin to be real. "Probably someone lost, sweetheart. Folks get turned around in these woods all the time." Mark shook his head. "Not on our trail. Nobody's lost up here. Not by mistake." Next morning he drove me. Did it again the day after, and the day after that. Mama even called off a shift one morning just to take me herself. I thought they were being dramatic. But then came Monday, one solid week since I saw the woman. Nothing strange, no trucks, no stray shadows. So I strapped on my boots and told them I'd walk. Mark hesitated, hand gripping his coffee mug like he wanted to crush it. "Fine," he muttered, "but straight to school, no wandering off." I promised, shouldered my bag and stepped into the chill. Leaves crunched underfoot. The world felt calm again. But peace is just silence before something breaks. Near the spot where I first saw her truck, I smelled engine fumes. That faint oil-soaked stink that clings to old machines. I turned the corner and froze. Same truck, same spot, same woman. She didn't blink. She didn't breathe. She just stared through me like she had been waiting. My chest tightened. Fight or flight? I chose flight. I cut off the trail sharp into the woods, branches slapping my jeans. I figured I could loop around and dodge her. I figured wrong. The truck engine coughed to life. Then I heard the door slam. Footsteps, crunching leaves. And then In a voice soft and hollow like wind through church ruins, she called, "Aaron, not boy." Not hey, my name. My name, spoken like she owned it. My heart punched my ribs. I ran, lungs burning, branches scratching my face. I didn't stop until my legs shook like wet paper. When I stumbled into our backyard, I called the house phone, voice cracking, and Mama and Mark came screeching up minutes later, pale as ghosts. They didn't ask if I imagined it. They already knew. That night, Mark sat at the table, rubbing the back of his neck like he was trying to erase memory. "You need to hear something," he said. His voice was gravel. "This isn't just some stranger. I knew her once. Long time ago." Mama flinched. Mark continued anyway. "Her name wasn't told gentle. Lydia. She was my wife before your mama." My stomach bottomed out. He'd never spoken that name. Not once. He looked older suddenly, eyes glassy like he'd seen storms he never wanted to remember. "She wasn't well," he said. "Obsessions. Dark ones. Followed me everywhere. Watched me sleep. Said she could hear things in the woods talking to her. When we separated, she swore she'd come back and take what was mine." Silence swelled thick enough to choke. Mama squeezed his arm, trembling. Police were called. They checked on her, claimed she seemed fine. No danger, but the watching didn't stop. Sometimes I'd catch her reflection in windows at dusk. Once Kyle swore someone stood across the school field watching me. At night, I'd hear footsteps outside my room, crunching gravel, brushing against siding. Mark started sleeping with his rifle beside him, and Mama kept the house phone in bed. The fear became part of us, stitched like a new nerve into our skin. Then came late October, cold air biting deep, nights stretching long. One evening, Mark worked late at the mill and Mama was cleaning downstairs. I sat upstairs doing homework, pencil tapping rhythm. That's when it happened. A soft tap on my window. I froze. My room sat high above the porch. No branches reached there, no ladder. Just sky and wood and wind. Another tap. Soft, careful, like knuckles made of bone. I turned, shaking. She stood there on the porch roof, face pressed to the glass, hair stringing like wet vines, eyes empty as winter graves. Lips moved against the cold pane, forming my name, Aaron. I screamed like my soul tore loose. Mama burst in as the figure dropped out of sight, vanishing into darkness like she was never real. But she was, and I knew she'd be back. Police searched. Nothing. They filed a restraining order after that, but she dissolved into the hills, like the mountains swallowed her. Folks whispered she checked into some hospital. Others said she lived 2 ridges over now, waiting in silence, watching tree lines. Life crawled on. But the forest never felt safe again. Sometimes when I walk the woods, leaves crack under steps that aren't mine. Sometimes I see a shape at the edge of sight. I tell myself it's nothing. But promises don't rot, they linger. And Lydia's promise was never empty. But here's the part I never told anyone, the part that still grips my spine when dusk comes quiet. The night after she vanished, I went to lace my boots for school. Something shifted inside one. A paper. I pulled it out, hands shaking. A photo, me, standing on our porch, taken from the trees. Date scribbled in the corner in messy pencil. The morning before I saw her the second time. My stomach twisted. Someone had been close enough to hear my breaths, to see the sleep still in my eyes. I didn't tell Mama, didn't show Mark. Fear sometimes chooses silence when screaming won't matter. 2 nights later, a cross appeared outside our cabin, made of twigs, tied with twine. My initials carved into the bark of the crossbeam, a prayer or a warning. I didn't know. Mark burned it without speaking. His hands shook, and then, one night, I caught movement inside my room reflected in the old mirror across from my bed. A slow shadow crossing behind me, but the lights were off. I turned. Nothing stood there. The mirror lied or told the truth, I still don't know. My skin crawled. Every night the woods whispered. Leaves moved without wind. Gravel crunched outside my window. Sometimes, Half asleep, I swore I heard her voice, gentle like lullabies dipped in poison. "Aaron, I promised you." Years passed, but the fear didn't leave. I moved away eventually, but the mountain clung to me, breathing at my back. Sometimes when I visit Mama, the woods feel too still, like they're holding their breath. And sometimes, standing on that porch, I feel someone watching from the trees. A stillness shaped like a woman with hollow eyes. I tell myself I'm grown now. I tell myself she's gone. But promises in the mountains don't die easy. They wait, quiet, patient, roots deep as the hills. And if one night I look out and see her again, pale face tucked between the hemlocks, I know she'll speak my name just as calm as before. Like she never left, like she never lost me. Time bends for those who refuse to let go. Maybe she's waiting still. Maybe obsession never rots. And maybe one day, in the quiet hours before sunrise, I'll hear footsteps on the roof again, slow and certain. And a soft tap on glass, a whisper like breath against winter air. Aaron, not threat, a promise. I pray the hills forget her, but mountains remember everything, and so do the haunted. Story 3. I start with the truth, even if it tastes like rust in my mouth. Something followed me into those mountains, and it never left, not really. Even now, I still wake up thinking I hear it breathing behind the walls. I was 23 when I moved to Red Hollow, a quiet, forgotten town curled deep in the Appalachian woods. Most folks who lived there were born under those pine-shadowed hills and never once thought to leave, like roots tangled in old stone. Me, I arrived with a duffel bag, a heart full of panic, and the kind of hope that feels thin like winter sunlight. My name is Jonah Reyes, and I had grown up in a crowded city where sirens were lullabies and the buildings felt like cages made of brick and tired dreams. I thought the mountains would be peace, a restart, a breath. I had graduated from a state college with a media degree that seemed useful only as scrap paper. After 6 months bouncing between gig jobs that paid in crumbs and stress, I finally found work at a small logging supply shop called Pine and Grain Outfitters on the edge of town. The pay was as fragile as a paper boat in a river, but it was steady enough, and the old wooden cabin I rented near the tree line was cheap. It had peeling paint, creaking floors, and a sour smell like damp wool, but it was mine, and I told myself I could build a life here. I was not a talker, never had been. Even as a kid, speaking felt like trying to carry a bucket of water up a steep hill. Everything spilled before it reached where it needed to go. The shop had a few employees, but closing shifts were usually mine alone, and I did not mind. At 7:45 p.m., the lights dimmed, and the radio cut off to static silence. I wiped the counters, counted the register, and locked up, always glancing at the dark woods across the gravel lot because the trees looked too still, too aware, like they were waiting. Red Hollow had its regulars, hunters with quiet eyes and old coats, hikers who smelled like wind and campfire, and locals who spoke in slow mountain drawls. But there was one person who did not fit, someone who made my stomach tighten every time I spotted him. He always came late, just before closing, sliding through the door like a whisper. Tall, pale, mid-40s maybe, with deep-set eyes that looked bruised from lack of sleep. He never bought much, just strange, mismatched things. Jerky, rope, hand warmers, a single can of chili, once a hunting knife that gleamed too bright under the shop lights. His clothes looked worn, his boots muddy like he lived in the woods themselves. He hardly spoke except a gravel-thin thank you when I handed him change. The other workers hated last-minute customers, but he wasn't like others. His gaze lingered too long. His silence felt like a heavy coat I could not take off. One night, after he left with a brown paper bag and no smile, my manager, Noreen, muttered from the back, "That man gives me the shakes, always looking like he crawled out the mountain belly." I laughed weakly, but the hair on my arms lifted. She was joking, but some part of me believed her. That early October evening carried a bite, fog curling through the pines like ghost fingers. Around 7:30, the bell above the door chimed, and there he was, gliding in without hurry. He moved through the aisles like he already knew where everything lived. I scanned his items, rope again, canned stew, and matches. He handed me crumpled cash, his skin cold as river stone when our fingers brushed. He left without a word. By 8:20, I locked up, breath fogging in the cold, and crossed the gravel to my old truck parked under a buzzing street lamp. That is when I saw him standing by his own beat-up pickup across the lot. He was not inside it, just standing outside, hands loose at his sides, staring at the store like something inside still called him. Mist swirled around his boots. He did not look at me. He did not move at all. I forced myself to unlock my door, climb in, and drive. I kept checking the rearview mirror even though I hated myself for doing it. Fear tasted sour in my throat, but I told myself it was nothing. Maybe his truck battery died. Maybe he was just thinking. I reached my cabin 10 minutes later, a slouching wooden house tucked near the forest edge. I microwaved leftover pasta, distracted myself with a game on my old laptop, and by midnight, I lay in bed scrolling through my phone. I kept the curtains half open so moonlight and porch glow could soften the room. The mountains were dark silhouettes against the sky, ancient and silent, like watchers made of stone. Around 2:17 a.m., a harsh white beam sliced through my bedroom, blinding, sweeping, like headlights dragging across the wall. My breath caught. I sat up, heart thudding like boots running on wood. The light vanished suddenly, leaving darkness heavy and thick. Probably a neighbor. Probably nothing. I rolled over, pulled my blanket tighter, and drifted. Something woke me again, a sensation before sound. My body knew before my mind did, panic swelling like a rising tide. I thought I heard my phone buzz, but when I grabbed it, the screen was black. No notifications. Silence sat thick in my ears. Then I noticed my bedroom door. It was cracked open, just a sliver, but enough to snap me fully awake. I always shut it, always. The latch clicked every night, reliable like breath. Now it hung wrong, like someone had touched it, gently, quietly. A chill crawled along my spine, cold as creek water in winter. I eased out of bed, feet touching the wood floor that felt suddenly alive. I closed the door and heard the soft click. Perfect. Too perfect. My fingers shook as I whispered to myself, maybe I forgot. Maybe wind. Maybe anything safe. But doubt crawled under my skin like ants. I moved to the window and lifted the blind just a touch. A truck sat in my gravel driveway. Same shape. Same dented bumper. Same dull metal that looked like it had never seen sunlight. My lungs stopped working. No one should be here. No one. Every bone in my body screamed at once. Then I heard a faint creep behind me, like something shifting weight. The closet. I turned my head slowly, praying I was wrong. Through the barely open closet door, an eye stared at me. Wide, hungry, unblinking, human but not right, full of something cracked and wild and starved. I did not scream. My body chose survival. I bolted, feet slamming wood, heart pounding like thunder in a tin roof storm. I burst through my front door and into the night, cold gravel cutting my bare feet, moonlight spinning dizzy as I ran. I banged on doors up the mountain road until an old man finally answered, hair messy, robe flapping. He blinked at me like I was an animal cornered in his light. I told him, shaking, breath broken. He let me in and called the sheriff. 26 minutes later, officers arrived. The truck still sat there, silent. Inside my cabin, they found the closet door hanging open like a hungry mouth. Pressed against the back wall sat a torn jacket and an old flip phone. The man was gone. They tracked him by the plates. His name was Braxton Cole, local loner. Trespassing history. He rambled when questioned, mumbled about watching, about wanting someone not to leave him alone out there in the woods, about me not listening to the mountains. The sheriff said he camped in hollows, moved through the forest like smoke. They said I was lucky. They checked the phone, photos. Dozens. Me at the shop. Me walking to my truck. Me through my window. Grainy nighttime shots where my face looked ghost white and unaware. He had been watching for weeks. The sheriff told me his phone buzzed inside the closet, waking me. If not, I would not have known. I might never have woken again. I moved. Left Red Hollow within a month. Could barely sleep even with lights on. Sometimes I hear footsteps in leaves. Sometimes I think about the mountains breathing in the night. And in the weeks before they caught him, 3 things kept happening at that cabin, things I tried to pretend were forest tricks, but now I know were him, always closer. Every time I went to gather firewood, an axe would lie on my path. First far away, then closer. Then close enough that the wood handle brushed my boot. One night I opened my fridge and a folded cold note lay between leftovers. It said in shaky letters, "You should not have come here." And one morning, just before sunrise, I stepped outside and found a torn white cloth on my steps, speckled with blood drops like berries fallen after frost. I pretended they were accidents. I pretended everything could still be normal. Sometimes, the scariest monsters are not wolves or legends carved in mountain whisper. Sometimes they are people who learn how to hide in silence, who watch from the dark and wait for you to feel safe before they crawl into your world. I still dream of that eye in the closet. I still lock my door 3 times. And when night falls and the woods outside shift and breathe, I listen. Because in places like Appalachia, the mountains remember every footstep. And some things that follow you never truly stop walking. I was never the kind of person who believed real danger could crawl out of ordinary life. I thought fear lived in movies and nightmares, not in daylight and not in tiny mountain towns like mine. My name is Theo Hale, and what happened to me in the Appalachian Hills still sticks to my ribs like cold breath, waiting to climb out again. Back then I was 17 and living in Ridge Hollow, a tucked-away place where the mountains curled around us like old bones, and the evening fog moved through the trees like something alive, whispering against the leaves. It was the kind of town where old church bells rang slow, folks waved from porches, and the crickets owned the night. I felt safe, protected by quiet routines and familiar roads that bent like lazy rivers. My life was simple. I split my time between school, helping my mom at our small general store, and running through trails with my best friend June Mercer, the girl who lived next door in a weathered farmhouse that smelled like pine cleaner and family dinners. June and I grew up barefoot in summer streams and sneaking pies off windowsills like baby raccoons. Her parents treated me like one of their own and joked I might as well have a room in their house. Nights blended into mornings and we whispered secrets about futures we thought we controlled. That summer started heavy, the heat pressing into your skin until you felt slow and sticky, like the world was melting a little around the edges. Me and June planned to walk to the town market later that night, mostly to escape the thick air and maybe buy soda with too much sugar. But before anything fun happened, something took a wrong turn, sharp and silent, the way danger does when it wants to feel like it's always been there. I was barefoot in my yard, toes squished through warm grass, when I heard the crunch of gravel next door. I figured it was June's dad getting home from work or her mom returning from town. I walked over to the fence like usual, ready to call out and ask what time we were heading out. I climbed the fence rail a little and peeked, but the car wasn't theirs. It was a dusty old blue sedan that looked tired and mean, the kind of car that has been places it shouldn't and seen things you don't talk about. My curiosity pulled tight. Instead of waving or calling out, I dropped back down and pressed my eye to a little knot hole in the wooden fence. I had looked through that hole 100 times before, spying on June's dog or just being nosy, but this time, what I saw froze me. A man stepped out of the sedan. He wore something like a police uniform, but it didn't sit right. The fabric looked faded. The patches were crooked like someone stitched them while shaking, and he carried a taser in his hand instead of clipped to a belt. No radio, no badge shining like real deputies wore, no marked car, just him, calm and creeping, like he belonged anywhere he decided to stand. He strode up to the Mercer's front door and knocked 3 times, each knock heavy, slow, like he was counting to himself. My breath stuck in my throat. My first thought tried to be normal. Maybe he was checking in, delivering something official, but everything felt wrong. He didn't move like someone nervous or lost. He moved like he practiced this, like he enjoyed it. I pulled my phone from my pocket and texted June and her dad. "There's a guy at your house. Looks fake cop clothes. He's holding a taser. Do you know him?" I kept watching through the knothole, heart tapping hard, breath short like the air turned too thick. After a moment, he leaned close to their window, pressing his face against the glass like a shadow wanting inside. Then he turned, walked fast back to his car, got in, and didn't leave. He just sat there, watching the house. Watching nothing, watching something. Minutes crawled. My skin crawled too. When Mr. Mercer got home about 10 minutes later, the car was gone like fog vanishing when you blink. But the feeling didn't leave. It sat in my stomach like a stone. Mr. Rosh Abi. Mercer crossed into our yard, boots dusty, shirt stained from a long day. "Show me where you saw him," he said. His voice was steady but sharp around the edges. I pointed at the knothole. "Right here." I watched him the whole time. He lifted his phone and showed me a picture from their door camera feed. There he was. Same faded uniform, same blank eyes, same taser hanging like a threat. "That's him," I whispered, stomach twisting. He called the sheriff right there. A deputy came quick, asked me questions, wrote things down with a face that tried to hide worry, but didn't do it well. He said process servers don't dress like cops, and no one carries tasers unless there's a reason. He said none of their units look like that sedan. If someone says they're law enforcement here, they're with us. That should have fixed everything. But fear planted itself deep like a seed that learns to breathe in the dark. 2 weeks later, my parents and I packed up for our summer trip. We had saved all year for a week away at a fancy lodge high in the Appalachian Mountains, way deeper than our town, in a place where the roads curled like snakes and the air smelled like pine and secrets. The resort sat near a lake that looked still as glass and dark as midnight oil. White cabins lined the shore, and lantern lights glowed soft at night, making everything look calm and safe, like a postcard pretending danger didn't exist. The first few days were perfect. Pancakes so fluffy they felt like clouds, lazy mornings near the water, friendly strangers who waved with tired vacation smiles, music drifting from the lodge in the evenings, and fireflies floating like tiny stars trying to escape gravity. I laughed. I forgot. I let the mountain quiet wrap around me, and I thought maybe life snapped back to normal. Then one night, after dinner, my parents decided to check the lodge shop for snacks and souvenirs. I realized I left my light jacket in our cabin, and they told me to run back and grab it. They'd wait in the main lobby. So I went alone. Night settled thick. The trees shimmered black against purple sky. Cabin lights dotted the trail like tired eyes. The wooden path creaked under my sandals as I headed back. I opened our cabin door, grabbed my jacket, and returned toward the lodge. Halfway there, I noticed the trail lights behind me flicker. My heartbeat stuttered, but I told myself woods play tricks, mountains breathe funny sometimes, and fear shouldn't hold hands with shadows unless you let it. Inside the lodge lobby, the noise soothed me again. People chatted, someone laughed, and soft music hummed from warm speakers. I stepped toward the elevator since our parents wanted to go up to the game loft for a bit. I pressed the button, stepped inside, and leaned against the cool wood paneling. Right when the doors began to close, a hand slid in, stopping them. The doors reopened, and a man stepped in. My spine turned to ice. I knew that face. Sharp cheekbones, thin lips pressed in a straight line like smiling was too hard for him, and eyes empty as winter branches. He wasn't wearing the uniform anymore, just a dark shirt and plain jeans, but his presence felt like that same wrong echo. My breath froze halfway. He didn't press a button. He didn't look at me. He just stood there like a shadow pretending to be human. When the elevator opened on my floor, I stepped out fast, not looking back, but his footsteps followed. Steady, even, close. The hallway stretched long, soft lights glowing warm, but everything felt too quiet, like the building held its breath. My sandals tapped, and his steps tapped right behind, not hurried, just matching me like he enjoyed the slow chase. I quickened my pace. He matched again, steps falling just a hair behind mine. Then something ancient and raw woke inside me, a voice that screamed without sound, telling me run right now or lose everything. I sprinted. My keycard shook in my hand like it tried to escape. Somehow it beeped green, the door swung open, and I dove inside, slamming it so hard the walls rattled. I locked it, shoved my back against it, chest pounding so fast it felt like something beating to get out. The cabin phone rang. I stared at it like it was a snake waking up. My hand moved on its own, lifting the receiver slow. "Hello," I whispered. A man replied, calm and quiet, like someone watching a candle burn down. "You run pretty." "I like how scared you look." My blood iced. My blood iced. "Who are you?" I tried to say, but my voice cracked. His voice dipped lower. "I see you. I know your name, Theo." "Theo." I came a long way. I slammed the phone down so hard the wood thunked. It rang again, and again, and again, and again. No breathing, no words, just ringing, pressing into my skull, begging to be answered. When I finally picked up again, his voice hummed slow like a lullaby made from nightmares. "I know your cabin number. Don't hide from me." I dropped the phone and backed away, shaking so fast I felt like I might fall apart. Tears stunned my face before I knew I was crying. I tugged curtains shut, checked the lock 3 times, clutched my jacket like it could save me. My heart hammered so loud I thought the walls might echo it. When my parents finally returned, they found me curled against the wall near the door, shaking like leaves in a storm. My dad answered the phone the next time it rang. "Whoever this is," he barked, "leave my family alone." The line went silent, then clicked dead, and it never rang again. We reported everything. The resort staff shrugged with tired smiles, saying big places attract weird people and maybe someone played a dumb prank. But they didn't see his face. They didn't hear his voice like a cold knife sliding slow. They didn't feel the way the air changed around him like it remembered fear. The rest of the trip turned sharp and small. I never stepped outside alone again. Never let a door shut without triple checking. Never let my parents out of sight. The woods no longer felt peaceful. The lake felt deep enough to swallow people, and every stranger made my stomach twist. When we returned home, Ridge Hollow didn't feel safe anymore either. The mountains looked taller, the quiet felt heavier, and every time I saw a dusty old car at the edge of town, my breath caught. June told me she thought she saw a car like his once, parked near the end of our road in the dark, engine off, lights dead. When her dad stepped outside to look, it rolled away slow into the shadows like it didn't need headlights to see. Months turned into years. I moved to a bigger city hundreds of miles from Ridge Hollow. People fill the streets, buildings crowd the sky, and noise pushes back the quiet that once felt so safe. I work part-time at a coffee shop, go to school, keep my doors locked always. I don't take elevators alone at night. I don't trust phone calls from strangers. I don't turn my back to open spaces when I walk home late. Parking garages make my throat tight. My past didn't stay behind in the mountains. It followed like a shadow with no body. The first apartment I rented had a tiny cabin-like feel, wood walls and a little porch. I thought maybe it would comfort me, but late one night, when the wind pushed against the windows, I walked into my living room and froze. On the inside wall near my front door, someone had drawn a thin chalk line and scratched words above it. "Don't cross this side." I stared so long my vision shook. Outside, the hallway lights flickered. I called my landlord shaking. He claimed maybe kids did it as a prank. But no one else had been inside. No one had a key. I moved out the next week. Another place, another try at peace. One afternoon, I picked up my phone to call my mom and heard crackling. I checked the landline wire and found it sliced clean through like someone took their time with a blade. My landlord said it must have been rats. But rats don't cut straight like scissors. They chew messy. Another night, getting ready for bed, I stood in my tiny bathroom brushing my hair. My reflection stared back, pale and tired. Behind me, in the mirror, something moved. A shape, a figure just outside the frame. My heart flung itself against my ribs. I spun so fast the world blurred. No one stood there, but the window above the bathtub was wide open, curtains fluttering like breathing. It had been shut and latched hours earlier. Every small sound feels like it breathes his name. Every unknown number calling late makes my pulse jump. Sometimes when I walk home after closing at work and the street is quiet, I feel a stare on my back like a fingertip tracing along my spine. When my phone rings at 2:17 a.m. and no one answers, I sit up shaking, half afraid the silence might start talking. I don't know why he chose me. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't run that night. And I don't know if he waits behind some future corner, calm and patient like always. But I know this, people like him don't disappear. They follow, they remember, they wait. Sometimes, when the phone rings in the deep dark and breathing feels hard and I hear nothing but my own heartbeat, I think he's reminding me that I never escaped the mountains. Not really. He's still somewhere out there, quiet and certain, like a shadow waiting for the right moment, like the hills never stopped breathing him out. And every time I double lock my door, every time I catch my reflection in a dark window and think I see movement behind me, I whisper to myself, that fear is only in my head. But sometimes fear feels like footsteps on a wooden hallway just behind me, slow and steady, never rushing, because some hunters don't need to chase. They know you will look back eventually. I never liked early mornings. I always felt like the world was still half asleep, holding its breath, watching. I did not understand that feeling back then, but now it makes too much sense, and it sends a slow chill down my spine every time sky turns pale blue before sunrise. My name is Maura Watkins, and I was working morning shift at a tiny diner in the Appalachian Mountains when all of this happened. Folks called our place Snowbird Diner because it sat on a long bend of a foggy road, tucked between pines and old oaks, a place where you felt the woods breathing around you. I lived in Crow Valley, a quiet town with peeling paint, one gas station, and a post office that looked tired and old, like it wanted to sit down and rest. Most folks there were born and raised and never left, and I used to think that made us safe, tucked away from the loud world. I was 20 at the time, a girl who thought danger lived only in scary movies or big cities on glowing screens. I was wrong in the worst way. Back then I lived alone in a tiny rental cabin on the edge of the woods. My mom and dad had passed years earlier in a winter accident on those same mountain roads, and I did not have siblings. I grew up quiet, shy, always the one sitting near windows instead of the center of the room. I did not have much, but that cabin felt like something I could protect, like a bird nest made of scrap and hope. I worked breakfast shift at the diner, cracked eggs, poured coffee for loggers and hunters, wiped syrup from tables, listened to old country songs buzz through speakers. My life was simple, like a small stone in a creek, rolling slow and harmless. Then everything changed because of a stranger who learned my name before I ever knew his. It started like nothing. It always does. It was a mid-October morning, one of those crisp days when the sky is pale and the breath of the mountain feels sharp in your lungs. I remember tugging my coat tighter around me as I stepped out my cabin door. I checked the time on my cheap phone. It read 5:28 a.m., written as 5:28 a.m. inside my mind like a whisper. Dew covered the grass like glitter someone spilled with no plan to clean it up. I locked my door, walked down the dirt path toward the road, and waited for the diner bus to stop by. The trees rustled a little, not loud, but enough to make me look over my shoulder once. Normal wood stuff, I told myself. Birds, squirrels, wind, nothing else. I got on the bus and sat in my usual seat, third row by the window, close enough to exit quickly when my stop came. The driver gave me a nod. He always did. I put in earbuds and watched the trees slide by like slow shadows. When the sky brightened, I started to feel like myself again. Warm. Safe. Nothing weird. At least that morning. My first hint came a week later. I finished a long shift at the diner, walked home tired, feet sore, fingers smelling like onions and coffee. I unlocked my cabin door, went inside, tossed my bag down, and headed for the windows. I always closed my blinds tight each night before sleep. I liked feeling tucked in, safe from whatever looked in. I pulled them down like always, snapped the little plastic rod into place, and went to bed. But the next morning, when I walked into the living room yawning, rubbing my eyes, I froze solid. My blinds were open. Not halfway, not crooked, but fully open, like someone had stood there and pulled them all the way up in the dark. I stood there breathing slow, heart squirming in my chest like a trapped moth. I tried to tell myself I forgot, that maybe I had been tired and left them. But no, I always closed them. Habit like brushing teeth or locking doors. I stared out into the woods, waiting for a deer or squirrel or something to move. Nothing did. The trees stood still like they were holding a secret. I shook it off. Told myself it was nothing. People forget things. Brains get tired. That night, I closed them again. Next morning, they were open again, and again the morning after that. Each time it felt worse, like someone was peeling away my sense of safety layer by layer. I started sleeping lighter, waking up at every crack sound or distant owl cry. Fear does not come like thunder. It comes quiet like water under a door. Around this time, a man started sitting at the diner counter each morning. I had never seen him before. He looked rough around the edges, like life pushed him and he pushed back hard. He always sat at the far stool where the neon bulbs flickered above him. He had worn boots, mud on them thick, like he walked places no one else did. His hair was thin, almost shaved, and he had tired eyes that searched the room too long, settling on me often enough that I felt heat rising in my face. He never smiled, just stared at his coffee like he wanted to drown something in it. He ordered same thing every day. Plain eggs, dry toast, black coffee. But he never finished half of it. I tried to be polite. I had to. It was my job. But the way he watched me felt different than all the other loggers and travelers. Not friendly, not curious. Something else, something hungry. I told myself I was overthinking. In small towns, strangers catch attention. That is normal. But inside, under ribs and bones, I felt a little shiver that did not leave. One afternoon, I came home from work and saw a small box sitting on my porch. A tiny brown gift box tied with twine like someone found old string and tried to make it look nice. I thought maybe one of the church ladies dropped off cookies like they sometimes did. I picked it up. Light. Almost empty. My stomach dipped. I pulled the twine off slow, opened the lid, and froze when I saw what rested inside. A single strand of my hair curled like a tiny snake, and a scrap of paper with shaky writing that read, "Perfect shade." I did not scream. I could not. My body just locked tight like stone. My eyes burned, and I felt like I might fall over. Someone had been close enough to touch me, close enough to take my hair from my head. I dropped the box on the ground and backed away fast, heart thudding so hard I felt it hit my throat. For a long minute I just stood there staring at my little porch, at the trees behind it, waiting for someone to step out and grin. No one did. The woods just stared back at me like a silent crowd. I thought about calling police, but out here police were few and far. They would say maybe a prank, maybe I dropped hair myself. No signs of break-in. Nothing stolen. They would shrug. I could already hear it. So instead I picked up the box, shoved it deep in my trash bin, and locked every window and door in the cabin twice. That night, I barely slept. Every leaf rustle sounded like footsteps. Every owl call sounded like breath outside my window. I waited for morning, like my life depended on it. A few days later, I walked home down the forest path because it was shorter than using the road. The trail twisted through oaks and pines and old mossy hills. My boots crunched dry leaves and the air smelled sharp like earth and pine needles. Halfway home, I stopped. My breath caught. On a tree to my right, nailed crooked at eye level, was a poster. A missing poster. My face on it. My name. Printed bold like someone prepared for me to vanish. But I was right there, alive. Breathing. I felt the air punch from my chest. My picture looked like a school ID shot, the one I had once used for my food worker permit. Under it, someone wrote in red marker with shaky hand, "Last seen walking alone near the woods." I tore it down fast like it burned my fingers. My hand shook so much I crumpled it into a fist shape. My throat felt tight like rope around it. I spun around, scanning trees, bushes, shadows between branches. No movement, but I felt something. Like eyes sliding over me from the dark between trunks. Not loud fear yet. The quiet kind that crawls up the spine like a bug. I hurried home, locked myself inside, and sat on the floor for a long time, breathing like a scared kid. I knew then I was not imagining anything. Someone watched me. Someone followed me. Someone wanted me gone or claimed. My head swam with thoughts. Could it be the diner man with mud boots? Could it be someone I passed on the bus once? Could it be someone from town hiding behind polite waves? Fear changes sound. The wind does not sound like wind anymore. It sounds like someone whispering your name far away. That night, I sat in my living room chair with blanket wrapped around me like armor. I kept every light on. I tried to keep eyes open, but sleep comes even when you hate it. I must have dozed off because when I opened my eyes again, the cabin was still dark, but something felt wrong, heavy. I got up slow, legs weak, and walked toward the windows. My heart dropped like a stone into cold water. Blinds open again. I grabbed them fast and shut them. My hands shook so much the plastic rattled. I felt like someone was right on the other side, waiting. Next morning at the diner, I saw the man again. Same stool, same boots, same stare. But this time, his stare felt sharper, like he knew I knew something, like there was a secret between us. When he left, he did not walk out like others. He looked at me one extra second. Long, slow, almost daring. My skin crawled. I started thinking maybe I should leave town, but where could I go? I barely had money, no family, no friends with spare rooms. I kept working because routine felt like a rope I could hold so I did not fall into panic. But fear curled around each day like smoke. One evening, I tried to take a nap after work. When I woke, sky was evening purple. I sat up slow. My room felt quiet, too quiet. I went to the kitchen and froze again. My front door latch was open. Not wide open, just unlatched like someone tested it and changed their mind, or wanted me to know they could enter if they wanted. My breath shuddered out and I backed away from the door. I whispered inside my head, I am not safe. I am alone. Someone is coming. For days after, I checked locks 3 times, then 4, then 5. I stopped walking the forest path. I took the long road home even when tired. I kept curtains pinned shut. I barely slept. People at diner noticed my dark eyes, my shaking hands when pouring coffee. I said I was just tired. They nodded and believed me because small towns believe easy things. Then came the night that still wakes me sometimes in cold sweat. It was a late shift. I covered for someone sick and walked home under a sky as black as coal. Crickets buzzed loud and the woods whispered to each other like they were talking about me. My feet crunched gravel and my breath puffed white. When I reached my porch, I saw a shadow move near the tree line. My body froze. I stared into the dark. It did not move again. Maybe imagination. Maybe not. I hurried inside, locked door, locked deadbolt, locked chain. I walked around checking windows, all shut. I turned to walk back to bedroom when I heard a soft sound behind me, almost too soft to hear, like someone dragging fingers along wood. I turned my head slow. My blinds on the living room window were lifting. Smooth, steady. Not snapped up all at once, but like someone pulled the string slow, enjoying it. I could see the dark outside rising inch by inch. My throat closed. My feet refused to move. My heartbeat was loud, like steps on dry leaves. I whispered inside my head, "Please stop." But the blinds kept rising until they hit the top. I stared at the glass. The night outside stared back. Nothing moved for 3 long breaths. Then a pale shape leaned close outside the window, face pressed to glass, eyes gleaming like something wild and wrong. Not smiling, not angry, just looking. Studying. The same man from the diner. Up close, his skin looked stretched, his eyes too bright, his breath fogging the glass. Fear cut through me like winter wind. My legs finally worked. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed the knife drawer handle, yanked it open. I turned and ran to the bedroom, heart slamming, fingers shaking so hard I dropped one knife. I grabbed another and locked myself in my bathroom, crouching by the tub. I tried to breathe quiet. Tried not to cry. I listened. The house creaked like always, but underneath it I heard something else. Soft steps on wood, a slow, dragging sound against wall. A faint whisper of something brushing my hallway. Time moved, strange. Minutes stretched thin like old gum. I stared at the bathroom door, waiting for handle to turn. It never did. After a long while, maybe 30 minutes, maybe a lifetime, everything went quiet again. So quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat echo in my skull. I stayed there until my legs ached and my back hurt. When I finally dared open the door, knife in hand, the cabin was empty. But my blinds were still fully open, and on the window glass, a foggy handprint smeared across it like someone slid their palm down slow. I did not sleep that night. I kept lights on, knife near me, eyes wide until morning came like a weak friend. Next day at diner, he did not show. The stool sat empty like it was waiting. And I kept wiping the same counter spot over and over, mind racing like mice running in walls. When my shift ended, I asked my boss for time off. I said family needed me. She nodded, gave worried look but did not pry. I packed a small bag at home, hands shaking. I decided to go stay at a church shelter 2 towns over. Not perfect, but safer than here. Before leaving, I grabbed my jacket, slung my bag over shoulder, and stepped out onto porch. My foot hit something. I looked down. Another small box. Same shape, same twine. My stomach twisted tight. I did not want to open it, but I knew I had to. My hand shook as I pulled string and lifted lid. Inside was a scrap of cloth torn from my sleeping shirt, and one more hair, and writing that said, "Almost time." I dropped box and stumbled back, breath shaking like a scared animal. I ran to bus stop on the road, stood there looking both directions like someone might step out of woods any second. Bus came. I got on, sat near middle because I felt boxed in at front or back. The ride felt endless. I kept turning head to look out windows, expecting face to appear. Nothing appeared, but fear sat heavy on me like cold weight. When bus reached town center 2 towns over, I got off, hurried toward shelter building. I walked past a busy grocery store, then up the sidewalk to the shelter door. People came and went. Normal life kept moving. I felt like ghost passing through it. Inside, they gave me a small bed. A kind older woman asked if I was okay. I nodded, said, just needed rest. She smiled, gave me a warm blanket. That night, surrounded by strangers breathing soft in bunks, I slept for first time in days. Deep, hard, real sleep. Morning came slow. I woke feeling heavy but alive. I checked my phone. One new message from unknown local number. My chest tightened as I tapped it. It said in shaky text, "Sleep good, little bird. I know where you rest." Cold spread through my veins. I stood up fast, heart racing. I looked around room. Everyone still slept or turned in beds. No one looked at me, but I felt watched anyway. I walked outside into cool air, trying to think. Should I call police? Tell staff. Run farther. Run to city. Run anywhere. Before I chose, something happened that shook me even more. Across the street, nailed to a telephone pole, fluttered another missing poster with my face on it. Same picture, same name. Only one new line in red under it. Says found but not safe yet. My knees felt weak, like soft clay. People walked by, none noticing. A crow landed on fence and stared at me. The mountain wind carried pine smell and something rotten underneath. I did not feel safe here either. I did not feel safe anywhere. So I kept moving. I asked around for cheap room farther away. Took another bus, then another. Each stop felt heavy. Each forest stretch felt like eyes in branches. Night after night, I stayed in different places. Shelters, cheap motels, a church basement once. Still woke to strange things sometimes. A window shade lifted halfway one morning. A small twig placed on my pillow like someone stood over me while I slept. My phone buzzing at random times, no number showing, only blank message screens. Weeks passed, Fear settled inside me like something that refused to leave. I could not go back to my cabin. I sold what I could through a friend so I did not have to return. I did not see the man again, not clearly. But sometimes, riding a bus past thick woods, I would spot a figure standing between trees, barely there, watching. Or walking through a parking lot at sunset, a man in worn boots would turn away just before I looked full at him. Maybe it was imagination. Maybe not. I never got answers. Police never found anyone, even when I finally broke down crying in front of a kind officer months later. They asked questions, but nothing came of it. They told me to stay cautious, look after myself, maybe talk to someone. They did not understand that caution does nothing when someone decides you belong to their twisted mind. Now it has been a long time, years. I moved far, changed numbers, changed routines. I do not tell people where I live. I still keep blinds closed at night. Sometimes I wake and they are open a little, just enough to see dark outside. I do not scream. I just close them again with shaking hands and sit awake until sky turns pale again. Some nights I find small things near my door, a feather, a pine needle, a folded paper with nothing written on it. Maybe kids, maybe wind, or maybe the woods still remember me. I tell myself I am safe now, but safety is a thin blanket. Wind goes right through it. And when I walk past a park or a tree line, I sometimes see a nail scar on bark like a poster once hung there, and I feel the back of my neck prickle like someone is standing too close. I used to think fear was running fast, screaming loud, bursting through doors, but real fear is quieter. It sits beside you when you drink morning water. It pats your shoulder when you step on a bus. It whispers you are not alone even when you wish you were. Real fear is the thought that danger does not forget your name once it learns it. Sometimes I still dream of my cabin. I see blinds rising slow like someone lifting eyelids. And in the reflection on the glass, I see eyes staring back, patient like the woods themselves. I never knew a person could haunt the living this way. I never knew a stranger could unwrap your world one quiet night at a time. And now, even in a new place, sometimes I look outside and see a pale shape near the trees. Not close, not waving, just watching, always watching. Some nights, when I cannot sleep, I whisper to the dark I got away, but deep down, I'm not sure if I ever really did. And sometimes, in the still morning when everything is quiet, I wake and find my window blinds open again, and a tiny box on my porch, and one small strand of hair waiting inside, and a note that simply says, "I found my way back." If you ever live near these mountains, if you ever walk alone through trees that breathe and hush, remember this. The woods hide many things. Some of them walk on two legs. Some of them do not forget the ones they choose. And sometimes when you think the forest is empty, it is just holding its breath, waiting for you to look away first. Do not trust the quiet. Sometimes it is only silence getting ready to break. And if you wake one morning and your blinds are open when you swear you closed them, do not tell yourself it was nothing. Do not laugh it off. Do not shrug. Because fear whispers soft at first, and danger always arrives slow before it suddenly stands right outside your window, breathing frost onto glass. The mountains remember footsteps, and shadows follow slow. I learned that too late. I hope you never do. Because sometimes the scariest thing is not the person you see. It is knowing they are there even when you cannot find them. And knowing that one day when you least expect it, the knocking in the night might not be wind at all. I did not expect danger to wear a quiet smile, yet it did, and it found me when I was too young to understand anything except fear and breath and the sudden weight of my own heartbeat. I was 9 when this happened, though when I replay it in my head, sometimes it feels like I was older, maybe 20, maybe ancient, because shock ages you faster than birthdays ever could, and some memories cling like wet leaves that never fall. I had always been a sheltered kid, raised by parents who treated the world like a sharp-toothed thing, hiding behind trees, strict rules, school and home, home and school, very little room to wander or explore, and just a tiny set of people I saw every week, like family and 2 friends from the tiny church on the hill. And that was my whole world. Back then, we lived near the deep mountains of southern Appalachia, in a small town called Ridgefall, a quiet place wrapped in fog and pine and gravel roads, where old houses creaked like tired bones, and everyone knew everyone, or at least claimed they did. My parents liked trips, little outings to places they thought were good for us, towns with diners and general stores and old folk music humming out of open doorways. But I never liked those trips. I always felt too small, too lost, like one wrong step, and I would disappear into a crowd or into the woods and never be found again. That morning, my mom had said, "Come on, Lena, it'll be fun. We'll try a new town down past the ridge, a mountain town with pretty streets and good food and a market. So get ready, sweetheart, and we might even stop for pie after." I did not argue. Kids like me did not argue. And my older brother Mason, who was 15 at the time, rolled his eyes like he had freedom and power. I did not, and he hopped along because he liked trips, liked towns, liked being older and loud and sure of himself. We packed into Dad's old truck, its engine coughing like a tired bear waking up, and we drove down winding mountain roads, past thick trees that looked like they hid secrets in their shadows, past old barns collapsing under time, past mountains stacked like sleeping giants. The town we arrived in was called Alder Creek, a place with brick sidewalks, wooden shops, and old men sitting outside stores like they were part of the furniture, and people walking around like a slow river of boots and jackets and mountain chatter. I stayed close at first, the way a bird stays close to its nest, but soon I drifted a little, not far, just a few steps, enough to stare at things without anyone staring at me because I was quiet and shy and too easy to spook. Dad leaned over a board outside a diner, reading the menu with great focus, humming at the options, while Mom tapped his arm and pointed out biscuits and gravy and peach jam, and Mason pretended not to care but peeked when he thought no one was watching. Mom looked at me kneeling slightly, smiling bright, saying, "They have chicken here, Lena. You like chicken, right, sweet pea?" And I nodded, even though my stomach was twisting from nerves and noise and the feeling of being tiny in a world too big. And that was when I saw him. Just a few feet away, at a wooden porch table outside the diner sat a man, not eating, not drinking, just sitting still like a statue that decided to breathe today. And at first my brain tried to make sense of him, like maybe he was waiting for someone or looking around at the town, but then his eyes locked onto mine. He had short dark hair, a rough face like someone who lived too long in wind and cold, a coat that looked worn at the sleeves, and his eyebrows lifted high, then dropped, then lifted again, like a silent joke only I was supposed to understand. Then came the smile, slow, stretched, wrong. Not a happy smile, not a friendly one, more like the grin of someone who has already decided something about you, something you don't want to know. Heat crawled up my face. I jerked my eyes away and stared at my parents, like if I blinked hard enough they would become walls, but something made me peek again. He was still staring, eyebrows hopping up, lips pulled, smile too long, as if time itself stretched around it, and my heart gave a quick kick that hurt. "Mom," I whispered, tugging on her sleeve, but she waved me off softly, saying, "One moment, Lena, we are just deciding on a place." I felt like a deer caught in headlights nobody else could see, like the sidewalk was a trap door waiting to drop me, and then I looked up and realized my parents had moved down the street to look at another cafe board, and they were not beside me anymore. Not far, but far enough. Something inside me pulled tight like fishing line, breath caught in my chest, and the world suddenly felt too loud, too sharp, like I was underwater and everyone else was on land. I looked back and the man was standing up. His chair legs scraped the wooden floor, a sound that felt like claws in my ears, and he started walking, slow at first, then steady, coming toward me like he had been waiting for this moment. Panic hit me, raw and fast, and I ran. Feet slapping brick, breath shaking, I wove through people with eyes full of tears and fear, until I saw my family and slammed into my mom's side like a falling branch. She looked down, surprised, annoyed almost, saying, "Lena, "What has gotten into you?" And I whispered nothing, clinging hard, staring at the ground so I would not accidentally look back. I wanted to tell her, I really did. But memory of being scolded that time I got lost at a county fair stopped my words, along with the idea she might think I made it up, or worse, that she would laugh. So I swallowed the story like a stone, held it heavy in my chest. But the story did not end there. How could it, in a place like Appalachia, where mountains hold whispers and strangers sometimes walk roads they shouldn't? See, I grew up, like kids do, slow and fast and uneven. We moved deeper into the mountains when I was 11, into a little cabin beside the woods in a place called Hollow Pine, away from town, away from crowds. It was peaceful at first, the way quiet snow feels peaceful, until you notice footprints that should not be there. The cabin was small, creaky, old, but warm inside, with a wood stove that crackled and walls that buzzed in winter wind, and I spent time reading, drawing, walking forest paths like I belonged to the trees. By the time I was 19, my parents trusted me more, and I had a habit of hiking alone, just little trails near the creek, slow walks where moss looked like sleeping clouds and tree trunks stood like silent guards. One evening, near sunset, the sky purple like a bruise, I returned home from a long hike. I pushed open my cabin door and froze. My bed sheets were folded. Neat, crisp, too perfect. I never left them like that. I barely remembered to make my bed most days. But they were folded like someone had sat there, hands still warm, waiting. A chill slipped down my spine like an ice drop sliding under clothing. I searched the cabin, voice small, whispering hello like a fool, but no one answered. No sound, just air and wood in my shaky breathing. That night, I slept on the couch, wrapped tight in a blanket like it could protect me from things without faces. And then came the watch. The next morning, I stepped outside, crunch of frost under my boots, and right there on the cabin steps sat an old, broken wristwatch, rust at the buckle, cracked glass face, like it had been dead for years. Except it was ticking. Tick, 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 slow, loud in the quiet woods. I picked it up with shaking fingers and dropped it again like it burned me, because things do not just come back to life for no reason. I tried to ignore it, tried to tell myself it belonged to some hunter or camper. But deep down, fear slithered in again, the same fear I felt as a kid in Alder Creek. And then, 2 nights later, at 3:07 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, heart pounding like a drum in a cave. No voice, no words, no words. Just breathing, slow, deep, human. I whispered hello, tiny as dust, and the breathing got louder, closer, like the caller leaned into the phone, like they wanted me to feel each breath against my ear. Then the call ended. Silence returned, heavier than before. By morning, I packed. I ran again, just like that day in town, only this time, I drove far, left Hollow Pine behind, moved to a busier place, hoping crowds would hide me rather than swallow me. Yet sometimes, in grocery aisles or rest stops or sidewalks, I get this crawling fear. I see a face in a crowd. Short hair, rough jaw. Eyes that know me. Eyebrows rise once. Then a smile stretches too slow and too wide. And every single time, I feel 9 again, lost and tiny, wanting only to run home and hide under blankets. Only I know blankets do not save you. Doors do not save you. Distance does not save you, because monsters are not always in fairy tales, and danger sometimes waits years like a hungry shadow, patient and loyal, following quietly through forests, through towns, through time. Some nights I sit by my window, curtains closed tight, lights off, breath held like a trapped bird, and I wonder if someone is out there in the dark. Someone who once lifted his eyebrows and smiled too wide at a lonely little girl in a mountain town. Someone who never stopped looking. Someone who still knows my name. And I wonder if somewhere another kid feels eyes on them right now, and maybe they will not run fast enough. Maybe this time, the story ends different. Not everyone gets lucky twice. And in Appalachia, the trees remember, the earth remembers, and sometimes people do too, even when you pray they forget you. Sometimes they do not forget at all. I was not built for fear, that is what I thought, until the mountains taught me the truth. I grew up far away from these hills. My name is Mason Reeves, and when I was a kid I lived in a flat town in Indiana, a place with wide roads and quiet lawns and neighbors who talked too loud about football and yard tools. My dad worked long shifts fixing trucks. My mom worked at a diner, and I was the kid who could lift 2 full crates of soda at age 12. Everyone said I would turn into a big, strong man who never had to worry about anybody. Big bones, broad shoulders, calm brain. That was the story of me. Or the lie. I learned quick that size does not promise safety. My dad used to tap my forehead like a drum and say, "Strength without smart is like a locked door without a key, useless when the world gets strange." I did not really get it then, but now I do, deep in my bones. I ended up in the Appalachian Mountains years later, not for adventure, but because life pushed me. I was 23, tired of city noise and tired of people telling me what to do. I wanted quiet. I wanted trees that breathed with wind. I wanted to feel like a person again, not a cog. So I picked a spot in southern West Virginia, near a little forgotten town called Bear Hollow. That name should have warned me, but I liked it. Sounded calm. Wild, but calm. I rented a small cabin, a weathered thing on a hill, with wood that looked like it remembered storms from other centuries. A creek whispered nearby. The porch creaked like tired bones. The forest around it was thick like woven fingers. I should have felt peace. At first I did. I worked nights at a supply depot down the mountain. Not glamorous work, but steady. I stacked boxes, checked logs, swept floors, anything they asked. The nights were long and slow, and when my shift ended at 1 in the morning, I would drive back up the winding road, windows cracked, cool air biting my face, stars above like silver seeds in the dark. It felt honest. Hard, but honest. My only real friend that summer was a coworker named Jonah. Skinny, fast talker, always laughing at jokes only he understood. He smoked cheap cigarettes and listened to old country songs about heartbreak and coal dust. We talked about life, dreams, stuff boys talk about when they are trying to pretend they are men already. We drove sometimes after work, just to not go home yet. The world felt too big to go straight to sleep. One night, a Thursday like most stories start, we decided to meet after my shift at a closed gas station near the Low Valley. It was 2:14 a.m. to be exact, or in soft time, 2:14 a.m. I remember because the clock in my truck glowed green and ugly. We had no plan. We never did. We just sat in my truck, windows open, crickets chirping loud enough to feel alive. The parking lot lights flickered like tired fireflies. Everything outside the circle of dim light looked like black soup. We talked about dumb things, food, girls, how the depot boss walked like his boots were too tight. The mountain breeze felt perfect. The night felt soft and safe. Then I saw her, a figure walking across the empty lot, slow, steady, like she had nowhere else to be. She looked maybe mid-30s, thin, wearing loose jeans and a long flannel shirt that hung like tired feathers. Her dark hair was tied back messy, and she moved like someone walking through honey. I did not pay attention at first. People sometimes pass through here. Hikers, truckers, lost folks. But then she turned straight toward us. I turned the radio down, the air changed, like the woods held its breath. Jonah leaned forward, eyes squinting. "Dude, she coming this way," he muttered, his voice suddenly flat and tight. She stopped next to the passenger window and tapped 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. Soft, but sharp enough to sting my nerves. Jonah rolled the window down only a crack. "I need help," she said, voice shaking like loose gravel. "My car broke down. Please. I need someone to come with me." She pointed toward the far end of the lot, near the trees where the lights faded to nothing. I followed her hand. A van sat there. A big white cargo van, rust peeling like dead skin. No windows on the side. It rested crooked, like something alive inside was shifting its weight. My stomach dipped like a trapdoor opened inside me. What is wrong with it?" Jonah asked, trying to sound casual but failing. She swallowed, eyes darting toward the dark edge. It will not start. I just need someone to walk with me, please. I do not feel safe. Her tone felt off. Not real fear, but practiced fear, like she learned it by watching people cry. I leaned in. Where is it exactly? She pointed again. Same exact place. Just over there. Come with me. Please. I nodded slow. How about this, I said. You walk and we will drive behind you. We can jump it if needed. The moment the words left me, her whole manner changed like a switch flipped in her spine. Her face hardened. Her eyes sharpened. Her hand shot forward and she yanked the door handle. The lock clicked open because Jonah forgot to lock it, and she pulled the passenger door wide and slid into the back seat fast like she trained for it. No, she said, voice flat and firm. You drive me there. Just take me to my van. There are men watching me. They will leave if you drive me. Jonah jerked away like she was fire. Lady, get out, he snapped, panic leaking into his voice. I slid my hand down between my seat and the console and wrapped my fingers around a steel tire iron. My voice went low. You need to get out of my truck. Now. Her face did not change. Her eyes stayed locked on mine like she was memorizing me. I am not getting out, she said. You promised to help. Just take me there. Promised. That word stuck in my skull like a nail. I did not promise anything. The air felt thick. Wrong. Heavy like storm clouds even though the sky was clear. Get out, Jonah said again, louder, his voice cracking. Her eyes shook then, just a tiny tremble, but her voice stayed cold. No. Just drive me to our van. She froze. We froze. That one word filled the truck like ice water. Our van. She corrected fast. My van. I mean my van. Too late. Too late. I slammed the truck into reverse, tires screeching like startled birds. The sudden motion threw her back. She grabbed the seat, fingers clawing the fabric. This is not the way, she yelled, voice raw now. Drive to the van. Drive there now. No, I barked, steering fast toward the bright front lights of the old gas station building. Bright lights. People sometimes passing by. Cameras. Safety. Jonah turned, face pale like milk. Lady, you have to get out. Get out right now. She stared at us, begging. Angry, desperate, confused. Hard to tell. Her voice twisted into a fast, messy rush, like her thoughts tripped over each other. You do not understand. I need you to go back there right now. They will leave if you do not. Please, 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 please. I did not answer. I hit the brakes in front of the entrance. The fluorescent light washed the truck in sick yellow glow. I yanked the tire iron out and turned around quick, my voice loud and sharp as steel cutting wood. Get out. Now. She flinched, looked at the door, then at the building, then at us. Her face twisted like she wanted to scream but swallowed it. She shoved the back door open and bolted across the lot, running toward the van like a moth to fire. The van door slid open before she reached it. A shadow shifted inside, like something tall or hunched or waiting. She dove in, and the door slammed shut like a mouth closing. Then the van screeched off into the darkness, tires spitting gravel, gone before breath returned to my chest. Silence. Jonah lit a cigarette with shaking fingers. Dude. He whispered like the words might break in his mouth. We almost got taken. I just stared at the empty space where the van had been. My hands shook so hard, the tire iron thudded against my knee like a heartbeat. Fear crawled along my spine like cold legs. We drove home silent. I dropped Jonah off and then climbed the mountain road alone. When I reached my cabin, I did not go inside at first. I just sat in the truck for almost an hour, staring at the trees that shifted with the night wind, holding that tire iron like it was a sword made for ghosts. When I finally walked to my porch, something waited for me on the wood. A folded note, paper yellow like teeth. My name on it in shaky ink. Under it, a line that froze my lungs. Don't scream tonight. The porch light flickered once, then twice, then held. I moved slow, like the mountain air was syrup. Inside, I locked the door, then the second lock, then the chain. My chest felt tight enough to crack. I checked every window. I checked the back door twice. Everything quiet. Too quiet. I told myself it was some sick prank. Maybe someone at work, maybe kids, maybe nothing real. But the fear would not leave. The fear sat in the room with me like a person. I tried to sleep on the couch. The forest outside whispered like 1,000 mouths chewing secrets. At 2:17 a.m., the cabin woke me. A tap at the window. Then another. Then silence. Then footsteps outside in the leaves. Slow, careful, circling. I hid my breath like a child under blankets. My phone screen glowed pale. I waited minutes that felt like hours. When the sun finally rose, I found fresh fingerprints on the outside of the kitchen window. Smudged but clear. Human. Raw. Recent. Later that morning, when I went to the back trail, I found a carving in a tree. The wood peeled white like bone. One word scratched deep. My stomach turned like something inside rotted. I walked back to the porch fast. The trees felt too close. The air felt alive and watching. That night, the cabin felt smaller. The walls creaked like someone pressed a shoulder to them. The creaks sounded like whispers under breath. Every sound felt like a step. Every shadow looked like a face. I wanted to leave. Pack my truck, go back to flatland, forget mountains, forget fear, but pride held me like chains. I was big, I was strong. I could fight shadows, right? I lasted 2 more nights. The first night, the tapping returned, soft, like fingers brushing glass. I did not check. I did not move. My breath came thick and scared. The second night, I heard breathing. Right outside my bedroom wall, slow, steady, like someone leaning close. I walked outside at sunrise, not brave, just tired. On the porch rail sat another note, same shaky hand. Same ugly paper, still mine. I did not pack slow. I threw clothes into bags, dumped drawers into trash bags, grabbed food, grabbed blankets, grabbed everything I could. My hands shook like they were not my hands. My chest burned. My throat felt tight. When I slammed the front door on my way out, I saw it. On the porch floor near where I stepped yesterday, a fresh footprint, bare. Muddy. Toes curled forward like someone leaned in. I left that mountain so fast the gravel spit behind me like sparks. I did not stop till the town faded in my mirror. I did not breathe right for hours. Years later, I still hear it sometimes. The tap, tap, tap in my dreams. The whisper of feet and leaves. The quiet word mine, and a dark voice that does not belong to any living thing. And I know something. Fear does not care how strong you are. Fear does not care how wide your shoulders are or how deep your voice sounds when you yell. Fear sits in the woods and waits, patient as roots. I never went back to Appalachia. I never will. Because somewhere out there, in those tight trees and old hills, somebody waits with a voice that practiced fear and a van that swallowed darkness, and maybe a knife or rope or plan too awful to say out loud. And they think I belong to them. If your gut ever twists, if your heart thumps too fast, if your skin crawls like it wants to run away without you, listen. Your instinct might not sound loud, but it is the only voice trying to save you. And in those mountains, under those trees, instinct is the only thing that kept me from becoming a shadow that never came back down the hill. I escaped. But some nights, when the wind hisses against my windows, I remember her face and the whisper behind the trees and the word carved in that trunk like a promise, mine. And I wonder, quiet as a falling leaf, if they ever stop looking for me. I was 28 this summer. Everything came crashing into my life like a storm rolling down a hollow. I'd been living overseas for years, tucked in a tiny apartment above a market in Lisbon, always smelling bread and ocean air. It felt safe there, warm and full of chatter and people everywhere, the exact opposite of where I ended up. When my aunt called and said we were having a reunion back in the States, somewhere deep in Appalachia, I said yes before I even thought about it. It had been almost 10 years since we all sat at the same table, since I heard my uncle laugh so loud the windows shook, since I saw my cousins running barefoot through grass and mud. And there was Grandma June. My grandmother was 82 then, bones thin like old twig branches, hands always warm. She lived in the mountains her whole life, in a little wooden cabin near Spruce Hollow, West Virginia. When she talked, she sounded like mountain wind, soft and sharp at the same time. I grew up thinking that cabin was magic, where cornbread tasted better and stars felt close enough to touch. She was fading, everyone knew it. I wanted to sit across from her again, drink sweet tea, listen to her hum old hymns. I wanted to walk her gravel road one more time, the one that wound around the hill and dipped into a patch of woods so thick daylight struggled to crawl through. I wanted to breathe mountain air and feel like a kid again. Most of my family lived in cities by then, so everyone scrambled for places to stay. Spruce Hollow did not have hotels, only a highway motel about 40 minutes down crooked roads. People begged neighbors and asked churches and still came up short. I got lucky. Grandma insisted I stay in her cabin, said she could not sleep right if I stayed anywhere else. My older sister Leah and her boyfriend Sam were not so lucky. They were told there was no room. That was when he showed up in our lives. His name was Travis Holt. He lived farther down the mountain from Grandma June, a long-haul driver who spent more time staring at highway lines than talking to people. He never married, never had kids, and locals said he was quiet but helpful. The kind of man who would pull your truck from a ditch but never stay for coffee. Grandma said Travis had a 3-bedroom house sitting on a clear ridge above a small creek. She called him polite, clean, a man who liked things neat. When she told him my sister needed a place, he offered his home without blinking. Free, he said. No trouble at all. My sister hesitated, but money wins sometimes, and they agreed. When they drove to see the house, I went too. I do not know why. Maybe curiosity. Maybe nerves I could not name yet. The road there twisted like a snake through endless trees, light flickering through leaves like blinking eyes. When we reached his driveway, the whole world opened up. Mountains rolled forever, deep green and misty, birds crying out somewhere far away. It looked like a postcard someone mailed from a dream. I remember saying, "This place looks unreal." Sam nodded, smiling, maybe trying to convince himself we were lucky to meet a stranger offering shelter. Travis walked out to greet us, tall, shoulders wide like he lifted heavy things often, beard trimmed neat, smile pinned too tight. His eyes, though, sat flat and still, like pond water with nothing living under it. He shook hands firm, clapped Sam's back, talked like we were old friends. He told us to come inside. I almost believed Grandma was right about him, that he was good, decent. Everything changed the second the front door opened. The smell hit us first. Thick, heavy, sour. Not garbage, not animals, not anything normal. It was something rotten, mixed with harsh cleaning chemicals, like someone tried to hide it, but it crawled through anyway. It stung my nose and throat, clung to my clothes, floated like it had weight. Leah gagged quietly, hand over her mouth. Sam frowned, eyes watering. I choked out air and swallowed hard. Travis saw. He gave a little shrug, acted almost shy. "Sorry about the smell," he said. "I got cats. Sometimes they make a mess. I sprayed something strong earlier. Should clear up soon." But that was not cat smell. I grew up with cats. This was something else, something wrong, like a secret decaying in the walls. Inside, the house was spotless. Too spotless. Counters gleamed, floors so clean they almost shined, not a speck anywhere, not a paper out of place. The air was silent, still, like the house was holding its breath, and still, the stench sat heavy. He led us to the guest room. It was nice, bed big and soft-looking, window facing the mountains. Then I noticed something strange. The sliding glass door, the one leading outside, had 2 locks. One normal, one thick metal padlock drilled into the frame. Sam noticed too. He laughed, trying to sound casual. "That's a lot of locks for mountain air." Travis chuckled quietly. "Gotta keep the cats in. Too many wild things out here. Coyotes, bobcats, even eagles. I keep them safe." We had seen one of his cats outside when we arrived. That cat looked very free. Then he showed us the kitchen. To get there, we had to step back outside, walk around the house, and enter another door. Like the house was cut into pieces. Inside, the kitchen looked like a magazine, shiny and spotless. But the door leading back to the hallway, toward the bedrooms, had another lock. A thick padlock, chains tight. The kind of lock meant to stop something from getting out, not giving in. I tried to ignore the feeling creeping up my spine, the way my stomach twisted. Leah and Sam agreed to stay anyway. Family money was tight, and they thought we were judging too fast. They planned to spend most of the time at Grandma's cabin anyway. They brushed it off, said they would only sleep there. That week, they avoided that house like it was made of fire. They came back late, left early, barely spoke to Travis unless forced. When I asked Sam, he shrugged. Weird guy, sure. Cat stink is nasty if you don't clean right. He's lonely. It's fine, but his eyes twitched when he said it, and I could tell he did not believe his own words. Deep inside, neither did I. Months passed. I went back to my life. Then 2 years later, I returned to that mountain again. Grandma was older, slower, voice softer. Leah and Sam barely remembered the smell. They joked about the weird house, said maybe they overreacted. Then Travis showed up one afternoon. We were sitting in Grandma's living room, drinking sweet tea, light drifting through lace curtains. He knocked softly, stepped in like he belonged. He looked at me, eyes too still, smile too wide. I just wanted to say sorry about how my house smelled when your sister stayed there, he said. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. We had never mentioned the smell. Not once, not to Grandma, not to anyone. I stared. My heart thudded. He kept talking. It was bad, he said, real bad. It's clean now. You should come see. I fixed it. I cleaned everything. Come look. I'll show you every room. I tried to smile, tried to say no kindly. I didn't stay there. I don't need to see anything. His face changed. Smile fell. Voice too tight. No, it wasn't good. You need to see it's better now. Come over. I'll show you every room. Something cold slid into my bones. Grandma, sweet and trusting, pushed me up gently. Go on, honey. He's just being nice. Don't be rude. So I went. The house looked perfect, like staged for pictures. No smell, no dust. Cats lying around lazy, locks gone. He hovered behind me the whole time, breathing too loud, watching my face, waiting for approval like a child waiting for a gold star. When I said it looked nice, he lit up, like he had been starving for those words. Later that week, my niece came to visit, just 6 years old then. Big, curious eyes, little voice. Travis came by again. He smiled too wide again. You can come ride my exercise bike anytime, he told her. It adjusts for anyone. You'd have fun. I stepped between them fast. She's too small. He shook his head, eager. No, she can. I'll show you how it adjusts. I crossed my arms. Then show me. He paused. Froze. Smile cracked. Then he backed away. No. House is messy right now. Then he turned to my niece again. You want to come? You'd like it. I called her mom, said keep her close. The minute I did, Travis shut his mouth, eyes dark like storm clouds rolling in. Grandma passed 2 years later. The mountain felt quieter without her humming. Houses on hills do not feel the same without old hands cooking inside them. I have not seen Travis since. I do not want to. Somewhere deep inside where instincts live like old animals, something whispers that we got lucky, that we brushed against something wrong. That house. Those locks. The rot that clung like it had hands. His strange smile. The way he wanted children clothes. I do not know what lived behind those doors. I do not want to. Sometimes I dream of that mountain ridge and hear something shuffling behind boards, something banging softly like it wants light. Sometimes I think about that smell, heavy and sticky, like something human refused to stay down. And worse, sometimes I wake in the night, sure someone is standing outside my window, waiting, breathing quietly, patient like mountain predators. Because the scariest monsters are not strangers in cities. Sometimes they are neighbors living down quiet mountain roads, smiling too wide, waiting for the right moment to invite you in. But nightmares do not end when you want them to. I wish this had been the whole tale, but fear roots deep in mountain dirt, and what happened after still feels like bark scraping my skin. That next visit to Appalachia came 2 years later, after Grandma's funeral, when I returned to clear out her cabin for sale. The place sat quiet, dust floating in beams of sun, her rocking chair still facing the window, like she had only stepped out for tea. For a few days it felt peaceful. Lonely, but peaceful. I cooked her recipes, walked the gravel road, let the cicadas sing to me. Then, late one night, everything changed again. It was around 2:17 a.m. I woke from a dream I cannot remember, heart pounding. Something felt wrong, thick and heavy in the air. The cabin was dark, silent, too silent, like the woods were holding their breath. I sat up, listening. A snap of a twig outside. I walked to the window slowly, trying not to breathe loud. The woods looked endless and black. My reflection stared back at me. Then a flash burst outside, a camera flash. Bright, sharp white. It hit my eyes hard like lightning. Someone was taking pictures. Of me. Of the cabin. I dropped to the floor fast, breath shaking. My hands shook so bad I almost dialed my phone wrong. But there was no service. I crawled away from the window, heart hammering so hard I felt sick. I barely slept. When dawn finally came, I stepped outside to check. On the ground below my window, half buried in dirt, lay an old boot. Worn leather, mud dried thick. The exact type I once saw Travis wearing, right down to the stitching pattern. My chest felt tight. I picked it up with shaking fingers. Cold. Heavy. Someone had been right under the cabin. All day I tried to shake it off. I tried to tell myself it meant nothing, that mountain folk left things around. But then night came again. Different terror this time. I checked under the bed before lying down. Habit from that night. At first, nothing. Then I saw it. A cigarette butt, still smoking. Someone had been under my bed recently, maybe moments before I looked. I froze. Breath caught in my throat like a trapped bird. My body refused to move, mind screaming. I backed away slowly, hands numb, heart shaking inside my ribs like a frightened rabbit. I slept in the car that night, locked every door, kept a pocket knife in my hand, though I knew it would not do much. I watched the tree line the whole time, waiting for movement. Morning came cold and gray. I left the mountain that very minute, did not look back. I told the family I needed help selling the cabin, that I could not do it alone. I did not tell them the truth. Some things haunt more when spoken aloud. Even now, in my city apartment far away, I sometimes wake to phantom flashes of light, like someone snapping pictures in the dark. Sometimes I see boot prints in my mind, scuffed and worn. Sometimes I smell that rot and chemicals, heavy like breath on my neck. And every now and then, when the night is quiet and the world feels like it is listening, I swear I hear footsteps under my floorboards, slow and patient. I do not open the curtains after dark anymore. Because once, high in the Appalachia woods, I learned something important. The thing watching you in the trees does not always leave the mountain. Sometimes, it follows. And sometimes, it stands just close enough that if you look out at the wrong moment, you will see a flash and know you are not alone. Not ever. My name is Mara Caldwell, and I had survived myself. I had survived bad friends, cracked sidewalks in a South Phoenix neighborhood, liquor stores glowing at midnight like candy shops for the broken. I used to watch people wobble out clutching brown bags, like they were holding on to their only answer in the world. Everyone drank just because they were breathing. People drank on Mondays and to cure Sundays, and because payday existed, and because life was too loud or too quiet or too long or too short. I grew up thinking drinking was as normal as brushing your teeth. By 14, I was slipping. By 15, I was hooked. My mom and dad dragged me out of my school and sent me to St. Agnes Prep across the city. Uniforms stiff as cardboard, halls quiet like church, kids looking at me like I was a cracked mirror they didn't want to touch. I hated them for sending me there. I hated the bus rides, the prayer before homeroom, the small lockers that felt like prison bars. But 5 years later, looking back, I know they saved me. They ripped me out of a drowning river and shoved me on dry land, even if I screamed the whole way. By 17, 2 years sober, counselors told me I was aging out of teen recovery groups, voices gentle like they were pushing a bird out of a nest. So I found adult AA, early morning meetings in the basement of a little brick church on Blake Avenue, folding chairs in circles, cheap coffee steaming in styrofoam cups, the 12 steps taped to the cinder block wall like commandments for the lost. I talked a lot there, probably too much. Some people rolled their tired eyes, but talking made me feel like maybe someone out there was breathing a little easier because I spoke. I tried to make jokes, even about the dark stuff, because laughing at shadows sometimes makes them shrink. That's where I met him. Only his name wasn't Derek here. His name was Rowan. Tall and bony, with hair so clean it looked like it squeaked. He always smelled like mint and laundry soap, like he scrubbed away anything dangerous about him. He sat near me every meeting once we talked that first time, when he came up after group while I was writing in my journal. "What are you writing in there?" he asked, voice soft like he practiced softness. "Just thoughts," I replied, closing the notebook halfway like it held secrets made of glass. "That's cool," he said, smiling too wide. "Maybe I should try that, help organize my head. It helps me sometimes," I shrugged. After that, he stayed. Questions trickled in, gentle but sharp under the surface. Was I applying to college? Was I working yet? Would I keep coming to this same group through summer? I said maybe, because I had just gotten a job at a little supply store called Ridge and Pine Outfitters in a mountain town called Cinder Hollow up in Appalachia, far from Phoenix heat. I was moving for clean air, quiet trails, a job that felt peaceful. Rowan's face dropped when I mentioned leaving, disappointment flooding him like cracked glass filling with rain. "You won't be here anymore," he said. "Not sure yet," I answered, casual as I could. But something in his eyes stuck to me like a thorn. Graduation came, diplomas waved, caps thrown, parents clapping until their palms turned pink. But in the crowd, leaning against a big oak tree at the back, Rowan, wearing a small smile like he belonged there. When he walked up after, handing me a little brown gift bag holding chocolates and a handwritten note, my stomach twisted like a rope pulled too tight. I thanked him, because that's what polite girls do when scared, and I never went back to that group again. 2 weeks later, I moved to Cinder Hollow, a sleepy town cradled in the Appalachians with fog that hugged the ground in the mornings and trails that seemed to stretch into forever. I rented a little off-grid cabin on the edge of a ridge, old pine boards and a tin roof and a porch swing that creaked like an old ghost whispering secrets. I worked the counter at Ridge and Pine Outfitters, folding flannels and selling trail maps, smiling at hikers and learning how to breathe without city smoke in my lungs. The first time I saw Rowan there, walking past the hiking boots like he belonged in my new life, I pretended it was coincidence. The second time, my chest went tight. The third day, he circled the store like a hungry hawk, glancing at me in long stares that didn't hide. He never spoke, just watched. My coworker, Hazel, fierce as wildfire, noticed. The next day, when he drifted inside again, she walked up to him and said loud enough for customers to hear, "What are you doing here? You don't even pretend to shop. You're creeping her out. Leave." His face turned beet red, eyes sharp like broken glass. Then he backed out the door and left. I told my manager, "If he comes again, tell us immediately," she said. But he didn't come back for a little while. Weeks rolled by, leaves turned amber, evenings stretched into purple quiet, but I started feeling watched again. When I walked home from work through the whispering trees, footsteps sometimes followed, but when I turned, only shadows lived there. Sometimes I saw a figure across the road, standing where the streetlight glow couldn't quite reach. I tried to tell myself it was paranoia, fear playing hide and seek in my head. One night at 2:17 a.m., I woke thirsty. The cabin groaned as wind brushed branches against the walls. When I stepped toward the kitchen, I heard it, clear and crisp, like boots on wood above me. Someone walking on my cabin roof. My whole body froze. Breath stuck like a stone. I whispered to myself, animals live here, raccoons, deer, maybe a bear. But deep inside, something cold whispered back, that wasn't an animal. The next morning, I found a single long strand of hair looped carefully around my cabin's door handle. Human hair. Brown, like his. Later, while hiking a quiet trail, I saw a wooden sign someone had carved fresh. The words jagged like a hand carved them too hard. Turn back, he's following. I told myself it was a prank. Hikers loved spooky games. That's what I tried to believe. But the knots in my stomach kept tightening. I kept working. I kept breathing. But at night I locked my cabin door twice and slept with the flashlight in hand. One evening, walking home as dust bruised the sky, I smelled smoke, sharp and strange. When I turned the last bend, my porch light glowed soft and warm, and a shape sat on the swing, swinging slow. My breath shattered inside me. But as I stepped closer, heart throwing itself around inside me, the swing was empty. Still, no footprints on the ground. Yet I swear on every sober year I've earned, someone had been there. Days blurred. Fear became a second heart beating inside me. I checked windows twice, then again. I started talking to myself, whispering, stay calm, stay human, stay here. Then one early morning, in that sleepy hour when the moon still hung heavy, I found chalk on my cabin wall. A thin line drawn near the porch. Below it, shaky letters said, "Don't cross this line." I hadn't put it there. No one else belonged here. The air tasted sour with dread. My hands shook opening the front door that evening, and inside, something small lay on my table. A folded note on white paper, no words written, just a sketch. My cabin, and a stick figure standing outside, staring through the window. I ran out the door, heart galloping, sprinted to the ranger station, breath burning like fire. They checked around, found nothing. They told me maybe it was kids, or a lonely hiker, or stress. I nodded, even though every part of me screamed they were wrong. Then came the night I heard breathing through my window. Slow, patient, as if someone stood inches away, listening for mine. I whispered into the dark, "Who are you?" Silence answered, and silence was worse than any voice. The next morning, there on the porch rail, a sprig of pine and a torn piece of blue fabric tied like a ribbon, like a gift. Like someone saying I was theirs to visit whenever they wished. Every time fear tried to choke me, I thought of all the nights I had fought to stay sober, shaking and crying and still breathing. I didn't come this far to let fear win. But fear doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just knocks softly and waits. One night, thunder rolled over the mountains, and my cabin lights flickered. I sat on my bed, hugging my knees, and the roof creaked again. Slow steps, a shuffle, a pause right above me. My breath stopped. Then came a sound like someone crouching, weight settling, watching. I wanted to scream, I wanted to run. But my legs turned to stone, and all I could do was listen to the slow drag of movement above me, like whoever was there wanted me to hear them, wanted me to feel them. I dialed the ranger station, hands trembling. They came. They inspected. No prints on the roof, no broken branches, no sign of anyone at all. Maybe he floated, I whispered bitterly to myself after they left. Ghost or not, someone was there. More days passed. I tried going to town more. I tried crowds, coffee shops, farmers markets. But always, I felt eyes somewhere, watching me pick apples, watching me cross the street, watching me breathe. Once at the store, stocking hiking socks, I caught a flash of brown hair in the reflection of a knife display case. When I spun, no one was there. One rainy afternoon, a delivery driver handed me a small cardboard package, no label. Inside was a small silver hiking whistle, and a note written in careful, neat letters red as dried blood, "Use this when I get too close." I dropped it like it burned. Hazel tried to walk me home a few nights. But even then, halfway up the quiet dirt road, something in the woods snapped a branch, then another, keeping pace with our steps. Hazel gripped my arm hard enough to bruise. But when we spun lights into the trees, nothing moved. I stopped sleeping. I started dreaming about footsteps on tin roofs and hair left like warnings and signs on trails carved by shaking hands. I started seeing Rowan's too clean hair everywhere, even in strangers on the street. One midnight, lightning cracked the sky and rain slammed the earth. I lay awake, staring at my dark ceiling. A tapping began at my window, slow, rhythmic, like a single finger knocking, asking to come in. I whispered, "Go away." The tapping stopped. I exhaled, and then something scraped across the glass, slow and long, like a nail dragging a message only fear could read. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The scraping stopped. Silence swelled like a balloon ready to burst. Then came a whisper through the wall, breathy and close, words stretched like a grin. "I'm still here." I didn't sleep. I just waited for the sun to save me. One afternoon, walking the ridge trail near my cabin, I found a cairn, a stack of smooth stones carefully built. I didn't think much until the next day there was another one, higher, closer to my cabin. The third day, another, and another, each one inching nearer like footsteps made of rock. Someone was marking each day they came near me. Someone was letting me see their devotion. I smashed one, kicked it to pieces, yelling, "Get out, get out." The forest swallowed my words like it was hungry for them. That night, at 3:05 a.m., the cabin phone rang. I didn't even know it worked. I froze. Let it ring 6 times. On the 7th, I picked up. Breathing, slow, heavy, not mine. Then the click of a hang-up. I threw up from fear. Days blurred into dread. I barricaded doors. I started sleeping with a kitchen knife under the pillow. I checked under the bed even though I knew that wasn't where real monsters hide. And then came the final night, 7:45 p.m., sky bruising purple, trees whispering secrets to the wind. I locked my door just as the first knocks came, gentle, friendly, like a neighbor borrowing sugar. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The knocks grew louder. I whispered, "Please stop." Silence answered. Then something slipped under my door. A strip of paper. I crawled toward it, heart pounding like a trapped bird. On the paper, in the same neat handwriting, "You left before I could finish healing. I still need you. Let me in." I backed away. Slow, eyes on the door and on-off wire. Minutes passed. Then the handle rattled, soft at first, then harder. My pulse screamed. The door held. And then I heard footsteps outside circling the cabin, slow like someone counting each step as a promise. A silhouette passed my window. I ducked under the kitchen table, knife clutched, praying he would leave, praying he wouldn't break the door down. A shuffling sound. Then the creak of weight on the porch swing, back and forth, like someone waiting patiently. I wanted to scream, but fear held my throat shut. Hours crawled by. At dawn, the swing stopped. Silence dropped heavy. Then footsteps walking away, leaves crunching, fading, gone. I didn't move until sunlight painted my floor. When I opened the door, a pine sprig lay on the step, tied with a new ribbon, green this time. I never saw Rowan again, but some nights, when the wind drags across the roof just right, or when branches scratch the windows like fingers wanting in, I still feel him nearby. Still imagine him crouched outside, patient as time, waiting for the day I forget to lock the door or the night my courage runs dry. Sobriety is still my greatest victory, but survival sits right behind it, quiet and stubborn, because danger doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just waits in the woods, smiling, whispering, "I'm still here." And sometimes, late, when I walk to the kitchen for water, I swear I hear footsteps on the roof again. Slow, careful, remembering me. I stay quiet and listen, because some stories don't end, they just wait. I never thought I would end up hunted in a place where the mountains look peaceful, like old grandmothers resting under quilts of fog, even though they hide hungry secrets in their folds. I always pictured myself as invisible, the kind of girl no one noticed in a grocery line, in a school hallway, on a porch swing. I was the quiet leaf that wind never bothered to move. But sometimes the world sees quiet and thinks it means easy to own. My name is Mara Grace Holloway. I grew up in a rust-bitten town called Birch Hollow, tucked between cold-chewed hills and a river that never stopped mumbling like it was telling old sins to the stones. People here believe shadows mean something, and if a branch taps your window 3 times, you don't open the curtains, not even for sunlight. As a kid, I always felt like I was watching life from behind a dusty window. Boys didn't look at me, girls didn't invite me, and silence became my secret blanket. By the time I turned 17, loneliness lived in my ribs like a second heartbeat. All I wanted was for someone to choose me, to whisper you matter even if the wind had to lie for them. That was when I met him, not in a cafe or by a locker, on an app called Snap Talk, where you send little pieces of your face and hope someone finds you worth tapping again. His name was Cole Mercer. Or at least, that's what he said. His messages started soft, like rain brushing tin. "Hey, you seem interesting. Want to talk?" The way he typed felt warm in my stomach, like a fresh biscuit on a cold morning. Within days, he was telling me I was different, that no one understood him but me. "You're my only steady thing," he'd write at 2:17 a.m., while the house slept and coyotes sang bone-sour songs at the tree line. "Don't ever leave me, I don't know what I'd do." At 17, those words were honey and chains at the same time. I wrapped myself in them like I had been waiting all my life for that kind of attention, not knowing every sweet thing can rot from the inside. He asked me to meet him. I had barely learned to drive, hands shaking on that rusty steering wheel, whispering to myself, "This is love. This is what love looks like," while gravel pinged under my tires and deer eyes blinked at me from the ditch. His cabin sat alone in the woods outside a forgotten Appalachian town called Ashesford, a place where mailboxes lean like drunks and the only working streetlight buzzes like it's chewing on ghosts. The first time I saw it, the porch sagged like it was tired of holding secrets. I should have turned the truck around, but girls like me grow thirsty for affection the way dry leaves crave fire. Cole wasn't gentle like his messages. He was clingy, sharp at the edges, eyes always scanning like the world was a threat he could only tame by owning me. "Don't talk to boys. Don't go anywhere without telling me." "Why would you need anyone but me?" I laughed the way scared people laugh when they think maybe it's love, maybe devotion, just hurts a little. The first night I stayed at his cabin, I woke to scratching at the window, not like an animal. Slow, deliberate. I whispered, "Cole?" He didn't answer. He just slept, breathing so steady it made me feel stupid, like I imagined the sound. But in the morning, the window was open a crack, cold air crawling in. I told myself wind has fingers too. I lied to myself like a child holding a cracked doll together. Time stretched. Weeks blurred into months. He cheated, lied, called me selfish when I cried, told me he thought he might be born wrong, not made wrong. Said it like he was reading the weather. I'm probably a sociopath. His voice empty as a hollow log. I stayed. Because girls like me think leaving means we're cruel. When he joined the Army Reserves, I thought space would soften him. It didn't. We wrote letters every day for 10 weeks, paper soaked like it carried blood instead of ink. I drove to the base graduation, pennies saved in a jar like wishes. Seeing him in uniform felt like winning, even though my stomach flinched when he didn't smile with his eyes. I proposed. 17 and desperate, kneeling on a floor that smelled like dirty socks and fear, holding a pawn shop ring that felt cold as creek stones. He said yes, but his face was blank as an unmarked grave. He moved in with me after, said he couldn't go home. I thought I was saving him. Instead, something in me shrank, like a voice being smothered under a wet quilt. When he went back for more training, I turned paranoid, checking his profiles, making fake ones, digging for proof inside shadows like a raccoon in a dumpster. I found his secret page. Girls and hearts and messages, then a meme about cheating on your dumb girlfriend. Like my pain was a punchline only he understood, I ended it. One crisp afternoon, wind blowing through the holler like it was cleansing everything, packed his clothes, drove them to his mother's porch, said, "Don't contact me again." 3 weeks. Silence. 3 weeks of breathing like I wasn't drowning. Then, at 7:45 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Package delivered. Check your porch." My bones turned to ice water. There was a notebook. Black cover. Worn edges. Like something pulled from a forgotten coffin in an attic. I didn't touch it at first. But curiosity is a serpent, coiling slow, squeezing logic out through your ears. Inside, pages upon pages of messy handwriting, like madness spilled through a broken faucet. Letters to me, confessions. Pleas, promises that tasted like dread. I closed it so fast my fingers stung. That night, I slept on my parents' floor, listening to every creak like a footstep. At 2:20 a.m., a text came from a new number. "Can you honestly tell me you enjoyed your life without me?" My breath shook. "Yes." "Stay gone. Don't ever return." I changed everything. New number. New locks. New garage code. Like a snake trying to shed its skin while something sharp waited in the grass. But letters still came. One, a suicide note saying his blood would be on my hands. One, admitting he lied about therapy, about attempts, about everything, because fragile men get more control. One said he watched me from a hill while I folded laundry. "You never see me. But I see you." And then the mountain turned against me too. Because Birch Hollow holds fear like soil holds bones. On a forest trail behind my parents' land, I saw someone walking. Always the same pace, always behind me, far enough I could pretend, but close enough I couldn't breathe right. His steps matched mine like a shadow that learned how to be flesh. An old woman near the creek, hair like wild roots and eyes like she saw ghosts and spoke their language, stopped me one evening. "Don't stay here. He doesn't want you leaving." Her voice shook like wind through teeth. I wanted to ask who, but her stare was already past me, watching something that made her jaw clench like she tasted dirt and terror. Then my cabin, the one Cole never knew about, the one I stayed in after running from town. I found a note inside. I didn't leave my windows open. I didn't invite anything in, but the paper sat on my kitchen table like it owned the space. "You look pretty in blue." I wasn't wearing blue. But my laundry basket held a shirt I wore 3 days earlier, folded different. Like someone touched it, smelled it, loved it in a way that felt like rotting affection. Now, every night, the woods press close to the cabin walls. Coyotes go silent when they shouldn't. Sometimes footsteps crunch leaves outside at 3:09 a.m., steady and calm, like whoever is out there has all the time in the world. Sometimes a bike rolls down the road, slow wheels. Rubber whispering death on dirt. Sometimes I swear I hear breathing behind my bedroom door, steady as a heartbeat that isn't mine. And every time I blink at a window too long, I feel eyes blinking back. I am not sure if he is flesh, ghost, or something mountain-born. Something the hills raised to cling and hunger and not let go. All I know is that I changed locks but not roots. Not memories, not the soil under my shoes. And something in these mountains believes I still belong to him, even when I whisper to the dark, "Never again." Never again. The dark whispers back, "We'll see. We'll see."